Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a DFS preview for the 2021 John Deere Classic. Now, if you want to take a look at what I'll be covering in this video, I do have timestamps in the description below, but they are also found on YouTube's progress bar. So all you have to do is hover over the progress bar and you'll find timestamps there. But a quick overview of what I'll be covering, I like to start with the tournament fact sheets, move on to a weather forecast, just to give you an idea what to expect. From there, go into the spreadsheet and look at target score past results to determine is this a birdie fest or a par fest, and then look at a course breakdown to determine is there a shot shape that matters at this golf course, and if so, then we'll get into the players and their shot shapes. If not, we'll just skip that part. And then from there, I like to look at grass stats and finally get into the bucket system, which the bucket system, if you are unfamiliar with that, probably means you don't watch too many of my videos, and if that's the case, then welcome. The bucket system is my way of analyzing the top 10 of any given tournament, any given year. I'm always trying to hit the optimal lineup. And in order to do so, I need to find 6 golfers that finish inside the top 10 that fit under their salary. So a good way to do that is through the bucket system. I will be looking at last year's results, last week results, recent form, course history, salaries, and strokes gained stats, all within that bucket system. Now, obviously, we didn't play a tournament last year. We'll get further into that, so we won't be looking at last year's stats, but the other 5 stats we will be. So again, timestamps can be found in the description below. Let's go ahead and get into this thing. So we're going to start with the tournament fact sheets. And you can see we are at, obviously, the John Deere Classic TPC Deere Run. Now, my stats go back to 2013, and for as long as it's been at 2013 and forward, it's been at TPC Deere Run. So all the data that I'm going to be covering will factor that in. I don't remember how long this tournament has been played at TPC Deere Run. I know it's not for the full 50 years. This is the 50th year anniversary of this tournament. So I know it hasn't been for all 50 of those years. I just don't remember when it was built. And I know, shame on me for not knowing that information prior to, but I'm sure it's an easy Google search for you guys to figure that out too. Anyways, TPC Deere Run in Silvis, Illinois. It's a par 71. Front nine's a par 35. Back nine's a par 36. 7,200 yards. Stimp meter's running at an 11.5, which is, I almost want to say that's about average. Usually I feel like the tour is trying to get it around 12. And it all depends on how undulating the greens are. So if there's a lot of undulation in the greens, you can't run these too fast because then golf balls won't stay on declines or inclines, however you want to look at it. They'll just fall down to the lowest part. So you want to keep it, relatively safe, I guess. And 11.5 seems safe. So I just don't know if there's a lot of undulation. When I do my course breakdown, I can't really zoom into the greens and determine, if there's a lot of undulation or not. So if you do know that, please let me know in the comment section down below. It'll help the community out. So anyways, going from there, course statistics, average green size, 5,500 square feet. I always like to think 55 to 6,000 square feet is about tour average. I always think that 6,000 square feet is around tour average. So we might have a little smaller greens on average than usual, but I think it's pretty much in line with average. The rest of the information doesn't really matter to me. I don't care how many bunkers there are. Some of the DFS industry guys talk about how some people are bad out of bunkers. I don't believe that. On tour, hitting out of the bunker is pretty standard, pretty easy for those guys. They'd probably rather be in a bunker than in the rough, especially around the green. You get to generate more spin out of the bunkers. And obviously there are some that are better than most, but yeah, bunkers are not a detriment to me. If I knew the likelihood of somebody finding a penalty per round, I would use those stats accordingly with whatever I see with water hazards in play. But since I don't, it's kind of pointless for me to bring up. But if you do, I would kind of look at that. See how many, I would pick golfers that tend to avoid penalties per round. But if there's no possibility in that, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. As I scroll down here, turf grass is the next thing I like to talk about. Greens have bent grass on them, and then you can see the other parts of the golf course and what their grass is. Now, in the rough, there's Kentucky bluegrass and fescue. So if you're looking at bent grass stats, really the only thing, if you want to look at a specific stat, it'd be putting. Sure, we do have on tees bent grass and in the fairways bent grass, but neither of those surfaces are really going to matter when it comes to the rest of the game, because approach shots from any fairway they're going to react. I shouldn't say similarly, because they should, but there are some grasses like zoysia grass that's going to be a little bit different. But bent grass, I don't think we have to worry about bent grass in the fairways. It's not like there's going to be any flyer lies in there or anything that's going to aid distance or anything like that. I think it's pretty standard, so it doesn't matter. But around the green and approach might be faced with some of this Kentucky bluegrass. So it's weird to like say, hey, look at bent grass for around the green stats as well as approach stats, because that just wouldn't be true. But it might be true some of the time, because if you have a shot within 30 yards in the fairway, that's considered around the green, and that'd be using bent grass. But usually when we think about around the green or scrambling, it'd be out of the rough, and the rough would be Kentucky bluegrass. Of course, some approach shots are going to be from there too. Don't get wrapped up in it. If you need to look at a specific stat, look at putting with bent grass. I like to look at average finishing position with bent grass. It makes it simpler for me. I know that's a very broad and generic stat, but I think putting is a little too narrow-minded or narrow-focused. I think you need to kind of step away from that a little bit. Maybe do a mixed model of putting as well as average finishing result, and you'll find kind of your bent grass specialist that way. The architect is D.A. Weibring. I've heard of this name before. I just don't remember. Hey, there we go. 2000. That's when this golf course was built. Should have known that they added a year of when this golf course was built. Anyways, and of course it has it right here as well. Just had to scroll down a little bit more. Anyways, that architect I've seen before, but I don't remember what golf course is. Maybe it's just this one, and I'm thinking of something entirely different. So really, architect probably doesn't really matter. It is the 50th anniversary of this tournament, as you can see, so I'm guessing they're going to do some kind of special things with it. Yeah, that's all I have with the tournament fact sheets. Let's go ahead and get into a weather forecast. You can see I pulled up Silvis, Illinois, obviously the same place that the tournament's being played at. We want to look at Thursday and Friday, but also kind of earlier in that week. You know, obviously tomorrow, Tuesday, we see partly cloudy. Wednesday, we have PM thunderstorms. All this tells us is it's probably going to be a little moist out there. Soft conditions. At least it's going to help promote soft conditions. I don't know how well this golf course rains, but as we see it now, we can assume it's going to be soft out there. Thursday, it's mostly cloudy, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Rain to us doesn't really matter. We were looking for wind, so we see 5 to 10. That's not a big deal. And then Friday, we have PM showers, so maybe the afternoon wave. If you're looking at like Thursday tee times, those would be the morning guys teeing off Friday afternoon. Rain, I think, helps a little bit. It helps soften the golf course, makes, going for pins a little bit easier as long as you're on your game, all that good stuff. The wind isn't going to matter again on Friday, 5 to 10 miles an hour on average. So, maybe if you want to get really specific, go to windfinder.com, find the gusts of when the highest points are going to be. And use that as a tiebreaker. Don't use it as your end all be all. Just use it as a tiebreaker to figure out, maybe I don't want to play this guy that's teeing off at 1 p.m. over the guy who's teeing off at 3 p.m. because that guy at 1 p.m. is going to hit, most of the wind. And I just want to stay away from that. That might be the best way. And I think it's probably like 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. if we're being honest. That's probably the actual tee times. I don't think they tee off as late as 3 p.m. So anyways, that's how I would look at weather. Again, highly suggest you guys take a look Wednesday night to see if the weather changes at all, and then change your lineups accordingly. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the spreadsheet. I'm going to go right to the results page, which gives us obviously past results and target score. So it's very easy to see the winning score. In 2019, Dylan Fratelli won it at 21 under. 2018, Michael Kim came out of nowhere and won it at 27 under. And then obviously we can keep going on and on and on. But I think the best stat to look at is probably second place and beyond, or even third place sometimes. Because if we look at that, second place in 2019, 19 under. Second place in 2018, 19 under. Second place in 2017 is 17 under. Then we have 20 under, but it's, Zach Johnson, third place 19. Second place 21 under. What I'm trying to get at here is 19 under tends to be the score that is in contention to win this thing. You can almost see week in or year in and year out that 19 under seems to be a very, very close number. So that's kind of the target score I'm thinking of. Anything north of 19 would be good, but trying to get to 19. That being said, that makes us a birdie fest. Anything that's over 15 under, I should say anything close to 20 under is going to be a birdie fest. No. I'll say if 10th place and above is 15 under on average at a tournament, that's a birdie fest. And that's what we have here. So definitely look at guys who score low, that do well in good scoring conditions, if there's a such thing. And that's how I would take a look at that. And I believe the winning score is going to be around 19 under. I would say north of it. So anywhere between 20 and 22 under will win this tournament. So that's what I have for past results and target score. Let's go ahead and get into a course breakdown. So when I do this, I wish I had visuals for you guys to see all the things that I saw, but I basically write it out. So everything that I see, I've written here, giving you an idea of, is there a shot shape that matters off the tee? That's what the OTT stands for. How about on approach? That's APP. I write it all here. So I always suggest for you guys, take a moment, pause the video if you want to read any of this. I'm going to scroll down. I have all the shot shapes in this column here, so you can kind of also take a look at that. But I'll go down to the hole 10 to hole 18, and you can read the rest of it. Again, pause it if you need to. And then I talk about the summary here. So this golf course, one of the things I noticed, there's a lot of elevation changes. Like from the tee box, I think the first hole goes downhill, or no, the first hole goes uphill. Then the second hole goes downhill. Then the third hole goes uphill. It's just a lot of up and down that way. I don't know exactly where the green sits in relation to the tee box, but obviously the landing zones and a lot of those is uphill, downhill. And on that third hole, the par 3, that is a uphill par 3, and it looks like it's at least a club uphill, essentially. So there's a lot of, calculations that these golfers are going to have to do in order to be extremely accurate. And I heard something earlier about distance being kind of a detriment here. So if you're hitting the ball a long way, your calculation has to be more precise. I don't disagree, but I also don't fully agree, because although just think of it like on paper, that makes, sound reason. As you're playing, if you're dialed into your game and you know your distances, that calculation isn't that big of a deal. Like there is probably, there's more yards to calculate difference. Let's put it that way. But that's kind of your game. When you play these golf courses, that's just how it's going to be. I get it. If I have to, if my pitching wedge goes, let's say 130 yards, and let's make numbers easy, a 10%, difference of uphill or downhill. Let's say it's downhill by 10%. I would have to account for 13 yards that I'm going to gain off of my pitching wedge. So if it's a 130-yard shot, I don't want to be hitting pitching wedge. But on the other hand, or on the other side of that, if it's 143 yards, boom, that's a perfect pitching wedge for me. But that calculation's simple. My 9-iron goes, I have those 1-length irons, so the distances are a little different. My 150 club would be my pitching wedge, but really it's a 9-iron. Like the lofts are as strong as a 9-iron. I'm not going to fool anybody. I'm not going to say, "Ooh, I hit my pitching wedge 150 and impress you guys." My pitching wedge is a 9-iron by degrees, like loft. It does say P on the bottom, but it's not a pitching wedge. Either way, 150 yards for me. If I'm playing with Scott Brown and Scott Brown hits his 150 club, let's say that's an 8-iron or whatever, there isn't much difference in calculation. You know, if it's his 8-iron, he hits 150. It's my 9-iron, I hit 150. Our distances between clubs might be off by a yard or two. So as what I'm trying to say is, you know, if his 8-iron is his 150 club, maybe his 7-iron is his 160 club. Or let's say his 162 yard club. My 7-iron would be my 175 yard club. Well, actually, I'm going from 9 to 8. So my 8 would be 164 yards. So there's a 2-yard difference. Those 2 yards aren't going to matter. So I'm sorry. I heard that earlier, and it just prompted me to say something like, "Ah, man, that's not right." So anyways, just giving you a little piece there. As for shot shape that matters, it's very close. I almost want to talk about every golfer that hits a fade at this golf course, or that's in this field, but it is I don't think it's really necessary because I don't have every single golfer's shot shape. I have a bunch of them, and obviously I can tell you play all the guys that you see that hit a fade. But because I don't have everybody's stat, and because I don't think it really necessarily matters all that much here, here's the thing. This golf course, there's a lot of forced layups, which is going to require some people to club down. But there are also some par 5s where you don't have to hit the shot shape that I have on there. So if I'm looking at all the par 5s that are on here, I have a fade here. I have a draw and a fade there, and I guess those are the only two, but really those aren't necessary if you play it short. You know, if you play it as a 3-shot hole, none of those shot shapes matter. So you take some of that away, which means 2 fades, and it really just leaves it down to 3, you know, on approach. It's not going to matter that much. But obviously, if you see some of these par 5s where it does say fade, hit the bomber. Find the bomber that fades the golf ball. Maybe a couple of them. And again, this is a right-handed golfer fading it. So it's a shot shape from left to right. If you want to look at a lefty like a Bubba Watson, it'd be them hitting a draw. So that's my course breakdown. I don't think it's going to matter all that much. This golf course is kind of simple by tour standards. Generous fairways. Some of the landing areas are very large, you know, like from 270 to 300 yards from the tee box to the fairway. It's like the widest part of the fairway. So as long as people are trying to hit balls to that location, it's not going to matter. They're trying to squeeze something up above, you know, like a bomber trying to hit it 320 to 340. Then they're going to have to either be pinpoint accurate or shape it around whatever objects are in their way. So either way, my I want to use the word synopsis, but I don't think that's correct. My analysis of it is shot shape is beneficial if you're hitting a fade, but just barely. So I'm not going to talk about golfers that hit fades. Let's go ahead and take a look at grass stats before we get into the bucket system, because I find that that's, you know, a pretty good transition from the course breakdown to here. And we're obviously on bent grass, so I'm going to take a look at bent grass. This is your average finishing position from 2013 to present day. Number 1 guy, Daniel Berger, 52 events. He has a 27% clip of finishing inside the top 10. We'll actually talk about this stat here shortly, but let's focus on the overall average. Daniel Berger, and then there's Steve Stricker. This had been known as like Steve's tournament for a while. It felt like, at least. He has done well here multiple times. And in 2019, I think he also did well. Let me take a look. Maybe not. Where are you at, Stricker? The pains of doing this on a spreadsheet. I guess we don't have a 2019 Steve Stricker. Okay, that's fine. But anyways, he does well at this golf tournament. I guess you can just take my word for it for now. I don't mind playing Steve this week, by the way. I think he's actually a decent play. Moving on from there, though, we have Rafa Cabrera-Bello, I think that's a fantastic play. Sung Jae Im. And then you can see the rest of the guys. I'm not going to talk about all of them. We have Alex Noren here, who just came off a good finish last week. I like him. Benny Ann, surprisingly, I do like him here as well. The buckets don't look that great, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And then you can see some of the other guys. Some of my favorite plays that I always do is like Sebastian Munoz, Russell Henley, Brian Harmon, Zach Johnson, Sung Jae. I do like RCB, and I do like Daniel Berger. That's probably going to be it. Harold Varner III kind of burned me last weekend. Some of you guys know that. I don't know how I feel. I'm probably going to play him again because I feel like it's one of those weeks where he's just going to laugh in my face, basically. For me, shunning him last week, I had a really good lineup. I had a couple good lineups with him in it, and he sunk me for having him on the lineup. So, yeah, I don't mind, going back to Harold Varner III. It's kind of in spite, though. Looking at top 10 success rates, Daniel Berger, 27%, finding the top 10 at bentgrass golf courses. Rafael Campos is right there behind him, but he only has 4 bentgrass events under his belt, so take that with a grain of rice. A grain of salt. Grain of rice? That's weird. Grain of salt. In 2021, he has an average finishing position of a missed cut. That's what he's averaging. So maybe not so much now. I don't know when his top 10 what year that was. So yeah, don't mind that. Then we have Steve Stricker, 21% top 10 success rate. He is a little bit of an elder statesman. Just giving you a heads up. He plays on the Champions Tour if you're not aware. So I still like his chances though. I think he's in a good spot. And he does have a 4th place finish at a bentgrass event this year. So take that for what it's worth. Russell Henley I like. Again, RCB. Munoz. We see CH3 up there once again. Sung Jae, Zach Johnson, Benny Ann. Hey, don't sleep on Benny Ann this week. Brian Harmon. I accidentally hit Kevin Na. I don't care for Kevin Na this week, so I'm going to unhit him, unselect him. Ben Martin. Interesting. Everyone thinks he's a Bermuda guy, but look at the bentgrass stats. 14%. That's not terrible. And that's probably all I need to talk about. But I do have to talk about 2021 because in the Rocket Mortgage Classic, where it was POA, the 2021 stats really stood out. More so than the overall POA stats. So let's take a look at the 2021 bentgrass stats. And again, we do have Steve Stricker up there. Some guys that have been playing decent golf as of late. Seamus Power, Hank Lebioda, same with Brian Harmon, and there's Ben Martin once again. He's the 5th ranked guy for 2021 bentgrass stats. That's pretty good. Siwoo Kim's up here, HV3. Kind of have to, it almost feels like you have to play him. Munoz, Noren, so those guys are showing up. Same as Sung Jae Im, Russell Henley, Daniel Berger. All these guys keep showing up. So if you wanted to create a core of golfers around these guys, I think that's probably a pretty smart idea. Let's go ahead and start getting into the bucket system. We don't have to talk anymore about grass stats. So right away, what I want to do is, let's put a filter on this. And I already removed last year. Now, the reason I did that is because in 2020, we're in 2021, it was canceled because of COVID-19. I think another tournament replaced it. There were some more meaningful tournaments, I guess, that they wanted to put in place of this one, because when they came back out of that suspension from COVID, this tournament, if it was in line with its schedule, would have been easily played. But because it's kind of a lesser known tournament, or I shouldn't say lesser known, but a lesser played tournament by all the big guns, they end up canceling this. So 2020, it was canceled. So we won't be looking at last year's stats, which means in this spreadsheet, I'm going to remove the last year bucket. So go ahead and hide that. And then we will be focusing on strokes gained, course history, recent form, and last week. And also salary, but I don't have like a salary bucket. It just goes off of their salaries. So let's start there because most of us build our lineups based off of salary. Obviously, you need to. There is a threshold that you can't go over, or I should say there's a limit you can't go over. So let's go ahead and start there. And really what I want to do is start with not looking at which ones are more important, but let's look at past optimal lineups first. So I'll start in 2017. The optimal lineup was 49,600. And let me admit this too. I don't have DK points for this, so I can't tell you with full certainty that this was the optimal lineup, but it has 6 of our golfers inside the top 5. I'm guessing, I mean, it's a pretty good idea that that was going to be your optimal lineup. And what it consisted of is Daniel Berger at 11,300, so very similar here. Zach Johnson at 9,100. 3 guys at 7,000, including Bryson DeChambeau with his win. And then a $6,000 golfer, all equaling up to be 49,600. You know, I usually like to look at realistic optimal lineups. So basically anything that's over 49,000. We already have it here with our optimal lineup, so we don't have to look at a quote-unquote realistic optimal lineup. This was the optimal lineup, and it ended up being over 49,000, making us building lineups much easier when we focus on trying to get as close to 50,000 as possible. We moved to 2018. What we have, I already highlighted a lot of this, but the optimal lineup here actually equaled 48,000. That's unrealistic to me. So the realistic way about it, here, let me tell you what the optimal lineup was. It was an $11,000 golfer, 11.6 by the way, and then 4 7K golfers and a 6K golfer. All that equaled up to be 48,000. The realistic lineup would have been skipping out on Sam Ryder here, as well as Harold Varner III, so 7,000, 7,400, and replacing them with an 8,100 and an 8,000. So it would have been 2 8K golfers, 2 7K, a 6, and an 11K. The one constant so far is the 11K and 6K, and it's the higher 6K, so between 6.5 and 6.9. When we get to 2019, we have it all over the place. Optimal lineup was under 49,000, so we obviously have to do a realistic lineup. And then also, I actually recorded the GPP winning lineup. So let's go over all 3 of those. The GPP winning lineup, all the golfers here that are highlighted in blue, consisted of a $7,000 golfer, 10.7, 8,000, another 10K golfer, a 6.5, so dipping into the 6K range, and then a 7,000 flat, Michael Thompson. So let's see there. There was 1 7, actually 2 7s, 2 10s, a 9, and an 8. So that's a really interesting. That was the GPP winning lineup. But the optimal lineup had the 3 7s at the top here, a 6,600 Chris Stroud, and then dropping down to a 10,200 Joaquin Niemann and a 9,800 Lucas Glover. So we had a 10, 9, 3 7s, and a 6. So pretty close to your traditional build. That was under 49,000. So let's create a realistic optimal lineup. And that would have consisted of all these in green. So we have those 3 7K golfers. Then we have an 8K, a 10, and a 9. So it did incorporate, basically all it changed was it went from Chris Stroud to Nick Watney, and that equaled 49,800. That was more of your realistic lineup. So it was a 10, a 9, 8, and 3 7s. So that's not quite the traditional. So it does fluctuate, but now obviously the main constant that I've seen is a 10K golfer. And when we go to the summary here with the buckets, every single year we've seen a 10K golfer. So whether we want to look at our top 10 frequencies or our top 5 frequencies, we see at least one inside the top 10 every single year. So very first thing we can look at, who are in the top, in the 10,000 and above category. We only have 4 golfers this year: Cameron Davis, Brian Harman, Sung J M, and Daniel Berger. Now, if I was choosing one of these guys, it's going to be Sung J M. He's kind of coming back to life a little bit. He had a good result last week. I like Sung J M. I'm not going to discount Daniel Berger, but really, I don't even remember the last time we saw him at. It would have been the U. Okay. No. That was. Oh, okay. I man, with all the new major, or not the new major schedule, but I don't remember him finishing 7th at the US Open. That is impressive. Okay, so he had 7th place finish. Actually, decent recent form average. Okay. You can sell me on Daniel Berger. I have no issue playing him. And in fact, usually my 10K and above ownership ends up being over 16% for each golfer. Just because more often than not, that 10K golfer is one of the 10K golfers is going to finish inside the top 10. And I don't have an issue with any of these guys. Cameron Davis just won. I know he goes by Cam Davis, but for my stats, I like to use Cameron. I know he just won. That also kind of concerns me because I don't like playing golfers that had just won. Not saying he can't. He's extremely talented. I'm just going to go with a gut call here and say it's not in him. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So I do like the 10K range. There are enough golfers in there for me to play. Outside of that, there isn't a bucket. Well, I shouldn't say that. Your 7K range. We've seen at least 3 golfers inside the top 10. And we've seen at least 3 golfers inside the top 10 for the 6.5 to 6.9 range. I split the 6K range into two ranges. It's 6.5 and up, and then 6.4 and down. I just have negative 6.5 and positive 6.5, but this one includes 6.5 as the salary. So 6,500, 66, 67, 68, 6,900, and then obviously the other one. But yeah, top 10, great. Top 5, we only see a definitive 1. So we've seen at least 1 every single year, but not the 3 that we see with 7K. So really what it tells me is you kind of want to start your lineups with a 10K golfer and a couple 7Ks and maybe a 6. And I think what that'll end up doing is maybe give you access to two 9K golfers to go along with your 10K golfer, or maybe a 9 and an 8, which I think is fantastic. When we look at the salaries here, I like everybody in the 9K range. Some of these guys seem like kind of reaches. For me, a reach. This is a reach to me. I know Kevin Na has won multiple times on tour. We're never going to guess when it's going to happen. It could be here, obviously. So that's probably a good reason why he's 9,500. But I would rather put more of my money into Alex Noren, Aaron Wise, Siwoo Kim, and Seamus Power. Seamus Power's been very consistent as of late. I like those guys. So when it comes to the 9K range, that's not terrible. And then the 8K range isn't bad at all either. Maybe not the formidable 8K range we've seen in the past, but if being honest, the 8K range sucks most of the time. Like there might be 1 or 2 guys that finished inside the top 10. Last week it was just Kevin Kisner. So of the 9 golfers that were in the 8K range there, it was just only Kevin Kisner. So if you wanted to pepper the 8K range there, it would have been a bad idea. I think the 8K range is good when it comes to like major championships, but for whatever reason, I almost feel like the 8K range on some of these other tournaments are like golfers that should be in the 7K range but are too popular, and therefore DraftKings like, okay, we'll push you guys up to the 8K range. And it also includes like some of the name value, basically. Like I can't like who am I trying to think of here? Well, Kevin Na would be a name value. Like he's got to be 9,500. He can't be 8,000. We can't put him 8,000. I guess I'm thinking of 8K range. So who would I think here? Like Ryan Moore, name value. What has he done lately? Why is he in the 8K range? I mean, it says course history here, but he should be a 7K golfer, not an 8K golfer. And Doc Redman has had some bad results, but because he was so popular last week, I think that's why he's in the 8K range this week. And same applies with Sebastian Munoz. So that's how I feel like the 8K range is normally. It's either overvalued golfers that should be in the 7K range. I guess they're just going to be overvalued no matter what. Doesn't matter for what reason. So I'll just leave it at that. This is going to conclude the salary portion of it, but I forgot to mention the strength of field here is 124. To put that in perspective, the Palmetto Championship, which was one of the weakest fields in on the tour as of late, as of recency, words are escaping my mind. But it was 198 at the Palmetto Championship. The strength of field was 198. We're at 124, and if Daniel Berger or Sung Jae Im decide to withdraw for whatever reason, this is gonna drop even more. See if I actually if I were to remove there, it goes down to 95. That's awful. that is very bad. That is, you know, Puerto Rico Open, Corrales Punta Cana levels. Like, that is not good. This is a very, very weak strength of field. I'm curious to see what that's going to do with like salaries and the rest of the buckets. So that's kind of the conclusion of the summary and also optimal lineups. Let's go ahead and why don't we just start with last week? Since we don't have last year, this will just be kind of a one-off last week. Which bucket matters? I knew this was going to happen. I totally forgot to update that. Okay. For last week, what bucket matters? Your number one bucket are golfers who actually missed the cut the week before. On average, I shouldn't say on average, we have 55 in the bucket this week. So let me go ahead and just highlight this one. 55 golfers in that bucket. We have 56 this year, and we're still waiting for 5 more golfers to qualify for this tournament. I think they have been. We just got to wait for them to enter the DraftKings lobby. But yeah, right on par. And we're not going to say pardon the pun, because I meant for the pun. Inside the top 5, we see at least one every single year. So this is a good bucket. Target those golfers that missed the cut. I know there's 56 of them. Find your favorite one. And you can play up from 1 up to 5, I would say. I'm projecting like 4.19, and that's just kind of my secret recipe of trying to figure out. So I think 1 to 4. Play somewhere between 1 to 4. I think that would be just fine. We can take a look at who those guys are. And I should mention, we're only going to look at the top 3 buckets for each stat category that I'm going to be covering. So last week buckets here. These are guys that missed the cut. So let me just show you what that looks like. I'm going to keep it like this so you can see their official world golf ranking, or at least the points that go towards it. And then their last week finishing result here. That's all missed cuts. So Doc Redman leads the way when it comes to salary. I actually do like Doc Redman quite a bit. But then we have CH3, HV3, so we have all of the guys named after their grandfathers up here as well. Dylan Fratelli, Sepp Straka, Mito Pereira. You know, some of these guys are decent considerations. Satoshi Kodaira, I know he's been on the mouth of a lot of people's, or a lot of touts' mouths. The mouth of a lot of touts. There we go. Yeah, I like these guys. I also don't mind Ches Reavie. I like RCB in the 6K range. I think it's pretty decent. And I'm not going to talk about any of these other guys in the 6K range. I don't think it's really that important. So I do like the guys that I have highlighted. Let's go and take a look at what the next bucket would be. Last week 2s are golfers who did not play the week before. So on average, we see 43. We have 49 this week. So I think we're probably this is gonna extend this bucket's success. Inside the top 10, we've seen at least 1 every year, but not so much when it comes to top 5. We have seen 0 inside the top 5 one of these years. Has a 100% frequency rate. I should have mentioned that in the last bucket as well. So every single year, we do see 1 inside the top 10. Obviously, that goes along with the minimum. And this is another high bucket, so it's going to be difficult to kind of determine, you know, what might be the better play. But as we look at it, we see Daniel Berger up there with Brian Harmon and Russell Well, let's put it this way. We have a bunch of guys 8K and above that do well at this golf course, that do well at this golf tournament. I think one of these guys, just by themselves, can finish inside the top 10. So I think this bucket is definitely one to go for. And I think I have a projection of 2, which I think is pretty conservative. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could keep it at 2. If I'm going with a 10K golfer like Daniel Berger, I don't mind mixing it up with one of the 9K golfers, or even dropping down here to the 7K golfers like Steve Stricker or Poston. Mitchell, I do like Mitchell. If Luke List ends up playing, he withdrew last week. I don't know what it was for. I do know he's been suffering vertigo. I don't know how often or how frequent it's been, but obviously he's pulled out of tournaments in the past because of it, and that's nothing to mess around about. So if it was vertigo that pulled him out of last week's tournament, I would be hesitant to play him this week. But yeah, a lot of other good 7K golfers. I don't mind Swafford. So yeah, Looking at the next, or I should say the last bucket I want to talk about, you know what? I can talk about these two buckets. That's fine. We'll look at last year threes. We see on average 15. We have 13 this year, so a little bit lower. The success rate isn't, I mean, success rate's pretty high, 10%. But when it comes to our minimums, you know, we've seen 0 a couple times. We only have a frequency rate of 71%. So we have to keep that in mind. Let's take a look at who those golfers would be for last year or last week threes. And again, this is that 20 to 40 range. And this would be at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So Kazire's there, McNeely, Gim, just those 3 names alone, I think, you know, give it enough firepower to push this this bucket into a top 10. At least one of these guys to finish inside the top 10. I don't mind someone like a Tom Lewis or even a Henrik Norlander. I'm probably trying to focus on golfers that have a decent bent grass percentage. So like Patton Kazire, now that I see Maverick McNeely doesn't look very good. Bo Hasler, believe it or not. Richie Wierenski, not terrible. Stallings or Norlander wouldn't be terrible. And then some of our 6K golfers, look at that. Roger Sloan, Robert Streb, JJ Spawn, Sean O'Hare. I guess not terrible. Your best 2021 bent grass golfers are Roger Sloan and Patton Kazire, so maybe you can find something there. Sloan has good course history here, so hey, maybe Roger Sloan is on the radar this week. And then the other one would be your top 20s from last week. When we look at the summary, we usually see 13 per year. We have 11 in the field this week. Frequency rate's about 85%. That's good. That's like 6 out of 7 years or 7 out of 8 years, one of the two. Although I'm not projecting a high amount, I think because of this number is low. Let's see if I were to move this to 13. Yeah, it's still not super high, and I think that's because we have seen 0 inside the top 10 and top 5. So it's not a for sure thing. But when we look at this bucket, I mean, you've got Sung J M, Cameron Davis, Alex Noren. Those are 3 names that I'd be pretty comfortable with. But also Pat Perez. I guess that's it. I wanted to think of another name. I don't mind Power or Merritt, who did well last week, but yeah, I mean, I like these 4 golfers right here to succeed this bucket inside the top 10. So that was our last week buckets. We can move on to the next one, which would be our course history buckets. And our first bucket would be that 40 to 60 range. So this is their average finishing position at this event since 2013, somewhere between 40 to 60. This is the number 1 bucket. On average, we usually see 30. We have 42 this week. We do have at least one time it's finished inside the top 10 every single year, dating back to 2015. That's where my course history stats go. 9.8% success rate's not terrible. I'm projecting around 3. So I think somewhere between 1 to 3 would be good. Let's take a look at our course history ones. So when we look at salary, we obviously see Cameron Davis here at the top, followed by Kevin Streelman and Aaron Wise, all in the 9K and above. But 8K and above, we can include McNeely, Merritt, and Glover. I don't mind those at all. I also don't mind Kyle Stanley. Don't care, you know, like you heard me talk about Varner III not too long ago. I don't mind playing him again. It's fine. This is your number 1 bucket. So somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers is what I'm kind of projecting. If you like any of these guys, write them down. You know, I think it's fine. Having this type of course history isn't going to be detrimental. Perhaps maybe we look at 2021 bent grass stats as one of those pivotal moments, or maybe just overall bent grass stats. Those that are good with their bent grass finishing positions, but none of these guys are really that good. So I just highlighted the top ones. I mean, you can include Lucas Glover because of his top 10 success rate, but that's as far as I'm going to go there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next bucket, which would be that 1 to 20. So having a top 20 finish the week or the year before. I shouldn't say the year before. That's last year's stats. Course history, that's 20 or better. So your average finishing position at this tournament would be 20 or better. And you can see that right here under course history. These are all your best course history guys. So we have Berger, Henley. Some people joke this is the Zach Johnson Open. I don't blame them. That's pretty good. Some of these guys have only played this tournament once, like Dylan Fratelli, and I think actually all of these guys have only played it once. I could. Daniel Berger probably only played it once as well. I don't have this set up for you to look at. Berger's played this twice. That's how he has his 19th, so that's good. It's not just once for him. I do think Fratelli did, though, just once. Let's take a look at Mitchell quickly. Yeah, Mitchell and Sloan are really the only ones that I'm curious to look at. So Keith Mitchell, just one finish, and Roger Sloan, 2 finishes, a 10th and an 18th place. So that's good to see. 18th must have been like when he was a rookie, I'm guessing. So he likes this course, and there was another reason why we wanted to play Roger Sloan. So there we go. That's another good reason to play Sloan at $6,900. And what did I say? Projecting 0.78. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I would say it's around 1. Like, I wouldn't mind that. On average, we see 10. This year we have 8, so it's a little bit less than average, and that's probably why the projection is kind of as low as it is. But I have a good feeling that this bucket will continue the trend of finishing inside the top 10, extending the frequency rate to still be 100%. And then our third bucket are golfers who actually have never played this tournament before, believe it or not. So the did not plays here mean they've never played this tournament before. We have 35 in the field this week. On average, we see around 38, so it's right on par. We have 100% frequency rate, meaning we've seen it at least once every single year. Let's take a look. Course history 3s. Who are our top guys? Alex Noren is really the top guy. And then it drops pretty sharply into the 7K range. Weird to see RCB never playing this, or even Byung-Hun An. That almost does not seem real. I wonder. Yeah, so like I can see. So the John Deere Classic was like one of those tournaments that started that I did a long time ago. And some of the names are going to be weird. So I hope that isn't the case. That'd be very disappointing. Siwoo Kim has actually missed the cut twice at this tournament. Let me go ahead and remove him down here. Yeah, be very particular on spreadsheets, otherwise you will screw things up. So let's see if Cabrera is here. It could be that he has a weird name. Doesn't look like it. So I don't have Cabrera, so thankfully that's okay. And then Byung-Hun An. Sometimes that hyphen's not there, so let's just double check on that. Okay, so no, I don't have either of those golfers on here whatsoever. And nothing down here. Perfect. So I guess that's their first time playing since 2013. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. And they're very good bentgrass golfers. So I don't, they themselves would be pretty decent to play. I'm probably leaning towards Alex Noren, but look at that. Matthew Neesmith's up there. A good top 10 success rate. Same with Joseph Bramlett. No one really with the greatest 2021 bentgrass stats, but I think in this field, they're probably some of the top guys. So keep that in mind. I think that's all I have to talk about course history 3s. Now we can get into our recent form buckets. Our number 1 bucket is that 40 to 60 range. So over the last 8 weeks, we're looking at average finishing positions between 40 and 60, believe it or not. On average, we see 43. This year we have 41. And again, we're still including, at least 5 more golfers to be added to the field. That could bump this number up to 43 and it'd be a perfect, 43, but maybe not. Anyways, every single year we've seen at least 1 inside the top 5. We've seen at least 2 inside the top 10. And we're actually projecting around 4.13 to finish inside the top 10. So let's go ahead and take a look at these recent Form 1s and see who's all involved. We look at salary, and it's Sungjae Im and Cameron Davis. I mean, let's put it this way. I love Sungjae Im this week. I love Russell Henley. I don't mind for Kazire, Glover, or Zach Johnson. I'm actually going to go back to Doc Redmond. I'm cool with Vegas. I'm going to go back to HV3 just because I don't want to be one of those guys who's burned last week and don't play him this week. So that's kind of why I'm going that route. We'll see what my ownership ends up being on him, like how much I'm going to play him, not how much everyone else is going to play him. I don't really care for that. I'm not looking for that leverage stuff. I don't think there's really anyone else to talk about, but I've highlighted 8 golfers, and those 8 golfers I like quite a bit. I don't mind Cam Davis, by the way, but I just feel like a win might take a little wind out of the sails. You know, like he's happy, ecstatic, but who knows? Maybe he comes back and he just laps the field here as well. So I'll have some of him. I don't know how much I'm going to actually own of him, but definitely worth in consideration. So yeah, I like this bucket, but I don't think I like it enough to think 4 golfers are going to actually make it inside the top 10. I'd probably bring this number down a little bit to maybe 3. So I'd select somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers finishing inside the top 10 for that bucket. Recent Form 2 is at 60 to 80. On average, we see 49. We have 53 this week. On average, we've seen at least 2 inside the top 5 and 3 inside the top 10. I'm projecting around 5. So let's take a look at our recent Form 2s. So this one is even more, it feels like it's even more successful than the last one, but obviously it wasn't. Recent Form 2s, headed by Kevin Na. Don't really care. Siwoo Kim, yeah, that's okay. Sebastian Munoz, I do like. And then a bunch of 7K golfers. So if you needed to select, you know, we said we wanted somewhere between 1 to 3 7K golfers in our lineup. If you're going to select any of the 7K golfers, here you go. This would probably be a good place to look. The golfers that I have on the screen, you know, I would say anchor 1 or 2 of them in your lineups if you're that type of person that anchors lineups. Otherwise, I think, you know, we'll see how ownerships go, but I don't mind the 7K range whatsoever. And then there's RCB and Adam Schenk and Byung Hanan that I like down here in the 6K range. Those are golfers that I like, and I do like the projections. I would say somewhere between 2 to 4. That's what I would select. 2 to 4 golfers. I know it says 5. I'm hesitant with that. The golfers that I do see in that bucket could extend it. There could be 5 that extend it, but I'm just looking somewhere between 2 and 4. I might just be on 3 of them. And if that's the case, when we look at how to build lineups here, if it's not any of these 7K golfers, it's going to have to include either Munoz at 8-1, Siwoo Kim at 9-1, or Kevin Na at 9-5. So I'm probably going to play somewhere around 2 golfers from this bucket because I don't care for any of these guys up top. But yeah, there's a ton of 6K golfers, a ton of them in this range. So maybe we find a 6K golfer finishing inside the top 10 from here. I don't know. And then the third bucket would be recent Form 3s. It's that 20 to 40 range. On average, we see 15. This year we have 11. And really, the frequency rate, 83.33%. That's pretty good. I think that's 6 out of 7 years. I don't think it's 5 out of 6. I think that's 6 out of 7. No, that's 5 out of 6 years. Okay. So 5 out of 6 years, we've seen at least 1 inside the top 10. We have a max of 3 inside the top 10 and a max of 2 inside the top 5. Now, this year is a little bit lower than on average, so the projection is actually almost half a person. So I think this might be a little risky. Let's take a look to see who these guys are. Maybe the golfers within them will be good enough. Yeah. Berger, Harman, Streelman, Norwin. Wise, McNeely. Yeah, the whole bucket itself. There's going to be one guy that finishes inside the top 10. I like this bucket. If not, I think there might be 2 that finished inside the top 10. But I wouldn't go more than that. I think that's a safe bet. And really, I think that's gonna wrap it up for the buckets. Actually, strokes gained. If you don't mind, I'm gonna show you how I update this. So in order to find this year's, I need to first go to my 2021 DK page. Let me open this up. Go over to where my stats are. I like to usually use the snipping tool. Snip all of this because really what I'm looking for are these columns here. I want to know what the column headers are called, like on Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, I should say. So if I go to the bucket page, this is where everything's kind of driven off of, and I go over to the strokes gained buckets. So you can see some of these are X'd out, but I actually want to show these ones, and you can see what they are up here. So funny thing that you can do, or one of the cool things you can do, is hit Control, and then the button above the tab is a tilde. So hit Control tilde, and you're going to get into, you see how it changes between numbers and then formulas. So in this formula, I'm going to select all of it, and I'm going to hit Control H. And what Control H does is it gives me a find and replace. So I'm going to find and replace all of these letters up here with the actual correct columns here. And it's always in order. So if I go with GD, I don't even know how it got to GD, but obviously I'm looking for CE when it comes to the columns that I want to replace these with. So that updates that. It's obviously not updating the first column, which kind of stinks. So I'll have to do that again. Here, let's try it again. There we go. So now it updated, and you can see it kind of turned color. That means the formula is working. So that one was good. If I go GE and go to the next one, CE goes to CF, obviously. That'll update that. Then we go GF to CG, right? CG, yeah. I'm going too far over. Does that, and then obviously this will be G, and I can change this to H. And so all of it gets updated properly, the way that it's supposed to be. And that's a quick way to change your formulas. So then when I go back to my summary, all of my numbers will get updated, and we can see what it looks like, and then look at our projections, which when it comes to strokes gained stats, if you looked, when it comes to my buckets, you know, I have 2 years worth of data. I don't have 2020's data. So do you really want to use, you know, 2 years worth of data? Probably not. But in those 2 years, we can take a look at the summary. You can see what has finished inside the top 10, you know, frequency rates and stuff like that. Personally, I don't know how much I need to go off of this. Strokes gained 1, those are all of your stats positive. So off the tee, approach, around the green, putting, all of those stats. You would think those are your best golfers, and usually they are. Week in and week out, those are your best golfers. So if I were to clear this out, look at my ones: Brian Harman, Russell Henley, Kevin Streelman, and HV3, believe it or not. And you can, these are all of the season-long stats. So these are all positive. I think just based off of these golfers, I could see this one being a dud, not actually showing up inside the top 10. So as much as we think that this would actually be one of the better buckets, I don't know. I'm going to reserve my feelings on that because I just don't know. We can see these negative numbers. I need to change that so we don't see negative numbers. I don't want to see negative numbers, that is. But the number one bucket it's showing are strokes gained 3s. And I can tell you already, when it comes to like the Rocket Mortgage Classic, that was one of them that showed like 1s. The tournament before that, I forget which one it was. The Travelers. The Travelers showed strokes gained 3 being one of the better buckets to choose from. And then I think only one showed up inside the top 10. And it was like projecting around 6, like this one is. I just think with too small of a data set, nothing's been normalized, so it's very difficult to actually, use it as a stat to go by. Personally, what I like to do is kind of just take the maximums for some of these, and at least from the top 5 frequencies, and never go over that number. I know we see zeros for strokes gained 1 and 2. Maybe I go to the top 10 then, if the numbers are too crazy here. And for strokes gained 3, I'm not going to look at this like 5 and 8. To me, it's not that big of a deal. Sure, we have 29 on average and 36 this year, but that doesn't really deter me, or it doesn't really put me on that. I mean, at most, I'm going to probably play 4. And at minimum, I might play 3. It might be 2. We'll see. But it's not something that, because of the small data set, I just don't, I'm not putting a lot of investment into this bucket. It's always fun to track and to take a look at, but I think I'm just going to leave it at that. Yeah, I mean, I would talk about all the golfers that are in each of the strokes gained buckets. So like 1 we already looked at. We can take a look at 2s. Not a lot of golfers in this bucket. Some are in the 6K range. When it comes to like the higher price guys, yeah, these 3 golfers I like. I also like the 2 in the 8K range. I don't mind Sepp Straka, Nick Taylor, Satoshi, Ben Martin obviously shows up in the 6K range. I don't mind jumping on Vincent Whaley, and Adam Long. I know that's basically everybody I selected there, but again, I'm not really trying to focus on selecting these guys. The bucket system itself, or the sweet spot score, will kind of lend its way to be on some of these guys. Usually, well, never mind. I'm not going to get too much further into it. Your strokes gained 3, headed by Aaron Wise, Siwoo Kim, Lucas Glover. We have 6 golfers, 8K and above. So probably a good likelihood that bucket will show up. And I mean, out of this bucket, it drops. I mean, it gets into your 7K range pretty fast. After 6 golfers, it's in your 7K range. And it splits it between 7 and 6K. So maybe we find some of our 7K golfers here, like Mitchell, Tom Lewis, maybe Ches Reavie, Kramer Hickok, Kyle Stanley, obviously, I talked about earlier. So yeah, I mean, it's a likelihood we're going to see at least 1, if not 2 of these guys inside the top 10. I just don't know how many. I think somewhere between 2 and 4 would be a good number to go with. So yeah, I think that is I'm not going to look at everything, but when I have the whole field open, you can see this is all color-coded based off of strokes gained. So you can see Kevin Na's a strokes gained 5. That's negative off the tee, negative putting. Strokes gained 4 is positive putting, negative off the tee. And you can see a bunch of those guys up here as well. So I think that's going to conclude this video. I don't have anything else to bring up regarding the John Deere Classic. One thing I forgot to mention in the beginning of this video, and I feel bad about it. I wanted to mention it in the review video for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. But one of you guys who follows me won a good chunk of money and actually reached out to me to let me know. So I want to give you a little bit of a kudos, let everyone know that Mr. Zach DeYoung hit a Cam Davis ticket, put $7 on it, and brought back $1,000. So congratulations, Zach DeYoung. And anybody else that wants to give me screenshots of your winnings, and especially if you can bring it back to anything that I had said in my video that may have gotten you on some of these guys, I will definitely shout your name out and let them know what strategy you applied. That way you get a little recognition. So anyways, congratulations, Zach. That's awesome. I wish I could hit $1,000 ticket. I wish there was actually sports betting in Minnesota. That'd be great. But hey, man, you took advantage of it, and good on you. That's all I have. We will see you guys in the strategy video tomorrow, where we will look at our anchor buckets, our anchor tee times, and look at ownership levels as well to find my favorite plays, and hopefully your favorite plays as well. That's all tomorrow. So See you guys later. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe on your way out, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, bye.